you look at all the different food diets and new diets keep coming out and people keep looking for more superfoods, it's because diet alone doesn't work. And if we simply just look at what Dr. Price studied when he went around the world and looked at indigenous cultures, not only were they eating a native diet, but every one of them was connected to their outdoor environment. They all were getting natural light through their eyes and on their skin, and none of them were living a completely indoor lifestyle.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We're your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey everybody, I'm Hilda Labrada Gore, and this is episode 161. My guest today is Thaddeus Owen, the primal hacker. Thaddeus takes the best of ancestral practices and today's modern world to optimize health. Today he explains why diet alone may not be enough to get us where we want to be. He suggests that light and temperature are the missing pieces to our wellness equation. Thaddeus is a health expert with a master's degree in holistic nutrition and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, among other certifications. He knows his stuff. Today, Thaddeus educates us about the benefits of natural sunlight and being outdoors. He warns us about the biological confusion that occurs when our bodies are exposed to the blue light emitted by our many screens and even our LED and CFL light bulbs. But Thaddeus doesn't just leave it there. He gives us the science behind what's going on, and he offers plenty of practical advice to go from just so-so average health to biohacked, optimized health. Before we get into the conversation, we want to recognize our sponsors. The Wise Traditions Podcast is sponsored in part by Vintage Tradition Tallow Balm, the original whole food of skincare. Check out their new products, including a non-toxic paperboard tube for lips and on the go. Get yours now at vintagetradition.com. And ancestral supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. New Zealand-sourced liver, organ meats, and bone marrow, and convenient gelatin capsules. Order yours today at ancestralsupplements.com. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Thaddeus.
Thanks, Hilda. It's great to be here.
We met a couple of years ago. I think we were doing an outdoor workout at a paleo conference, right?
Yeah, Ben Greenfield out in the park, early morning, barefoot in the sunshine right before Paleo FX started.
Seeing you that day, and if anyone were to see you today, I don't think they would have any idea that you had once struggled with high anxiety and health issues. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So now I'm on quite a few podcasts. I give very large presentations to big groups of people and really out in the forefront on social media for the things that I talk about. So honestly, 10 years ago, I never thought that I would be here. I had my entire life very, very high anxiety. I didn't know what it was from. It was very hard to solve. I actually ended up going on medication for a year and then weaned myself off as I was searching kind of for the answer. And what happened is I took a super deep dive into health and nutrition, and I ended up getting a holistic nutrition master's degree about 10 or 15 years ago. And through that master's degree, one of the sections I had to learn was on traditional foods and nourishing traditions. So the book was Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. I got really into the Weston A. Price style of living, and that is actually what led me down the path of this concept called biohacking, which is a fairly niche concept. But the long and short is I adopted the Weston A. Price Foundation diet. I tipped over into this biohacking niche and did a huge deep dive, solved my own anxiety issue, and found out A, what the root cause was, B, how to fix it, and C, how to help other people kind of do the same thing. And through that journey, not only have I focused and helped other people learn about health and nutrition, but a lot of these ancestral and ancient practices have so much more than just nutrition at their foundation. There's actually one or two other things, including nutrition, that I think are super important and can help people overcome a number of health issues. So, my own anxiety was overcome through one, diet, having the right diet, getting my brain the right nutrients and my body the nutrients it needed, doing the very difficult inner work, inner emotional work that most people are, and me included, was afraid to do and even talk about with anyone else. And then using some of these biohacking techniques that kind of merge ancient tradition and overcome modern kind of technology and indoor lifestyle to basically holistically solve and never have come back my anxiety problem. So it was very powerful, and I'm on about 5 years now where I haven't had the anxiety issues I've had ever, and I'm doing things I never thought I would do before.
Wow, that is so fantastic. Now, help me wrap my mind around this biohacking thing, because honestly, what comes to mind, Thaddeus, when I hear biohacking is a person who has a cabinet full of supplements and they're willing to do anything and everything to improve their health. And maybe they're going to CrossFit every day and they're just super intense. So help me understand if that's a misperception. Just tell us, what does it mean to be a biohacker?
Yeah, absolutely. So at its essence, biohacking is truly optimizing human biology. We know so much about ancient practices and the human body from modern science. And so if we take a look at ancient practices that truly worked and the modern science of human biology, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and quantum biology, what we are understanding is way more about how the human body works, so that in biohacking, we take advantage of all the information that's out there and optimize the environment outside of us. So our living environment and the environment inside our body to truly optimize our health and longevity. And so rather than just focusing on being of average health, taking the supplements or whatever it is to create a level of average health that we see most doctors and medical professionals talking about, we strive for optimal health. And we do that by utilizing appropriate technology to overcome our indoor, sedentary, toxic modern lifestyle and ancient practices that everyone has used forever as humans to be healthy.
I see. So I guess I was kind of stereotyping the biohacker when really it's just a person who doesn't want to settle, who really wants to be as strong physically and mentally as they possibly can be, and really just live their best life as we were meant to do.
Absolutely. And most people with the term biohacking, it can turn some people off, and it sounds kind of techie, and it does bring up images. And many people that are biohackers go all in on supplements and high technology and all these expensive gadgets. And really at the bottom of it, it's how to make yourself optimally healthy. And each person is uniquely different. And we often find at the end of the day, if you go through everything and really study and really practice on yourself, at least what I've found is you don't need supplements and expensive gadgets and other things. There are some very basic things you can do.
Is that why you call yourself a primal hacker instead of a biohacker, Thaddeus?
Yes, absolutely. So part of my journey was delving deep into the biohacking world and doing all the supplements and buying the technology, and kind of almost like every modern person is aspiring to get, the latest phone and the latest gadget. That's the same race that happens in biohacking. And what I found is that ultimately wasn't very healthy. And I wanted to separate my burgeoning philosophy of how to be healthy with this new term. And it incorporates part of biohacking in that we want to optimize health using all available information and technology. However, the way I see it is merging this ancestral and ancient practices of health, nutrition, movement, information that we gain from our environment, and overcoming a modern lifestyle where we're inside 90% of the time. We have more electromagnetic radiation around us than at any point in human history. It's 10 to the 18 times more radiation around us than ever before, everywhere on the planet, as well as other things. Our soils are losing certain minerals that aren't being added back. And so there are, even if you were to go live like a caveman again, or practice only ancestral practices, you may not be optimally healthy because of other factors. So there is an appropriate time for technology. However, what we recommend is going to the technology and supplement solution last after you fix your environment first.
So take us from the theoretical to the practical. One way in which we might live more like our ancestors did.
Absolutely. So, and this is my number one thing. So what I have found in all of my research, all of my studying, and all of my self-practice that made the most difference in my personal life and makes the most difference from a research standpoint is morning sunlight. Morning sunlight is accessible to everybody. It is 100% free. Our ancestors certainly would have been outdoors during the morning when the sun rises. And the sun rising in the morning is a very magical time that sets our body's circadian rhythm. So we know the Nobel Prize last year, 2017, was given out for circadian biology and how important it is to human health. And that morning sunlight sets your circadian rhythm for the whole day. It builds hormones in your body that you need, such as melatonin, thyroid hormone, and it programs a whole bunch of information into your body through your eyes and your skin that we now have all the latest science on. But from an ancestral practice, just being outside, barefoot on the ground, in the morning sunlight provides this needed information that keeps our body optimally healthy, and everybody can do it, and you don't have to spend any money to make that happen.
Well, this is so different from how most of us live. Not only are we not getting morning sun, but we might not get any sun on any given day, right?
It is an unfortunate aspect of modern life. And often, we call that the screen rise. So the first thing you do when you wake up is you're not outside looking at the sunrise, but you turn your phone on and look at messages, or you flip on a laptop and have to get right to work. So you're flooding your body with light information. And most people don't think of light as being information, but if you think of how we send texts, emails, etc., those all fly through the air, and they contain lots and lots of information that our devices pick up on antennas. Our body has the same process with information from our environment. And you often find most people, A, 90% living indoors, and B, very addicted to their technology, their phones, the social media, staying in contact with everyone, turning on the artificial overhead lights like LED and compact fluorescent lights. All of these devices and lighting and indoor environment is one bit of information. It's blue, very high spikes of blue light from all our devices, all our overhead lighting. And that blue light is constantly giving our body information that it's basically always summertime in the middle of the day whenever those lights are on and our devices are on. And so the modern lifestyle is providing lots and lots of information to people without them necessarily knowing that they're getting this information through their eyes, their skin, into their brain and their bodies. And yet everyone is going along and then finding they have high anxiety, they have depression, they have mitochondrial disease, and not really figuring out the solution for how they ended up there.
Yeah, I get it, because in our Wise Tradition circles, we're also saying that food is information. So it makes sense to me that light could be information as well. And I also like that we also talk about food, farming, and the healing arts, looking for wisdom in those categories. And this definitely falls in the healing arts category. But why is it that the food component isn't sufficient to help us live as our ancestors did?
Yeah, and not to say, so like my three tenets that I think are most important are light, temperature, and food. So food is there, and food is 100% information, not just the vitamins and minerals that are in there, but if we think about, I'll start with food and then I'll get to light. Food is also light information, and that's something most of us don't think about. Where your food was grown had a certain amount of ultraviolet light, a certain amount of red light, blue light. That plant absorbed those photons from the sun and made carbohydrates and other things inside the plant by absorbing photons, these particles and waves directly from sunlight, information from sunlight, and embedded them in the plant as information. When we eat those plants, or animals that ate those plants, our body receives that sunlight information based on where that was grown or raised. And so we think about, if we're purchasing food from the coast of California, but living in northern Wisconsin, that information that our body is receiving may not be appropriate to where we live because our body is trying to deconstruct that light information, even from food, including the minerals and vitamins that are included in that food that may be different from our local environment. Now, there is more information that comes from the sun than we even know, and from the light. And so our body has receptors on it for light information. Two of the main receptors are called melanopsin and neuropsin. Those two receptors, their job is to take information from sunlight and translate it into our body to build the correct hormones and tell our body what time of day it is, to set our internal clocks and keep us healthy. Basically, neuropsin measures ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light, as we know, starts out where there is no ultraviolet light at sunrise, and then it becomes increasingly stronger throughout the day, and then it wanes and goes away at sunset. Our body actually picks up those changes in ultraviolet light and tells our body what time of day it is, setting our circadian biology. Melanopsin is in our eyes and in our skin and picks up blue light from the sun. So during the day, blue light starts out in the morning, increases during the day, and then starts to decrease. And then, of course, at night, there is no blue light. The moonlight and firelight have almost zero blue light. So when we provide our body information that there is blue light out by turning on an LED, a CFL light, or your device after sunset, that's providing blue light to your skin and your eyes, which is telling your melanopsin receptor that it's daytime to stop producing melatonin, which gives us the benefits of sleep, helps us get sleepy. It's the body's master anti-cancer hormone. And it starts producing cortisol to keep us awake and alert because it's daytime. There's a ton more information that program other hormones and neurotransmitters in our body that come directly from light, but that's just one example of how light information directly affects us and our health.
Maybe this is why people have trouble falling asleep after they've been on their computer or on their phone or watching TV, because that blue light interferes with their natural circadian rhythm. Coming up, Thaddeus explains why diet alone isn't enough to achieve optimal health. And he also helps us understand why we are so addicted to our phones and electronic devices. And he shows us how to shift our focus back to the natural world.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Winter can be your healthiest season yet. At the Fire and Ice Retreat at the Point Retreats, you will learn how to use extreme temperatures to decrease inflammation and pain, boost your metabolism, and enhance mitochondrial and immune function. You will awaken your nervous system with Wim Hof breathing techniques. You'll decrease stress while relaxing by the fire and learning amongst a community of like-minded winter and health enthusiasts. Doesn't it sound amazing? I'm so there. Are you? Plan on joining us February 7th through the 10th, 2019, in the beautiful North Woods of Minnesota. We'll experience light, cold, and heat as we learn how to turn winter into a time of healing and repair. The Fire and Ice Retreats all-inclusive package is fantastic. Don't miss the experience to go beyond what you thought possible and use the coming winter in ways most people have long forgotten. Head over to thepointretreats.com to sign up for the Fire and Ice Retreat this coming February. Use the code WISETraditionsWinter for a special 10% WAPF podcast listener discount. Space is limited, so book now, and I hope to see you there. And Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements offer New Zealand-sourced bone marrow and nose-to-tail organ meats like liver, heart, kidney, pancreas, spleen, and more in simple, convenient gelatin capsules. Traditional peoples and early ancestral healers believed that eating the organs from a healthy animal would strengthen and support the health of the corresponding organ of the individual. In other words, a person with a weak heart was fed the heart from a healthy animal, and so on. I know I personally don't get enough organ meats in my diet, so I went ahead and got some supplements of my own. Visit ancestralsupplements.com today to see what they can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
Yeah, this is huge. I gave a TEDx talk a year ago on this exact subject. I did a lot of research for that talk on blue light and especially artificial light at night. There are thousands of research studies that have directly studied artificial light at night and sleep. And Harvard Medical School just released an article about 2 years ago summarizing this topic. And the American Medical Association just sent out last year a warning letter warning cities not to install LED streetlights because blue spike in LEDs negatively affect human health. And light at night affecting sleep, it basically destroys your melatonin and increases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And that, even if you fell asleep and say, you might watch TV, you might fall asleep, you'll wake up after 8 hours of sleep and still feel tired. That's because you're missing out on these benefits of rejuvenation during sleep by exposing yourself to light at night.
I've seen articles and maybe even read the studies you've talked about, and yet even though it's head knowledge, it's very difficult to apply. In other words, I think we're really addicted to our devices.
Yeah, so here's one of the interesting things is we know from studies that being out in full spectrum sunlight increases dopamine in our brains. So it's kind of this pleasure hormone, also the hormone of addiction. So the sun is almost making us addicted to being outside. When we live an indoor lifestyle, a blue light shifted, we lose that dopamine hit from being outside, and we tend to then overindulge in social media, which for a very brief time increases dopamine. And so we keep going back and back and back for more dopamine hits because we're not getting the natural dopamine we'd get from being outdoors.
So you've said light, temperature, and food are part of the biohacking optimal health plan. I still don't quite get why food isn't enough.
Yeah, and I wish it was that easy. And if we look at everybody that's tried diets, you look at all the different food diets and new diets keep coming out and people keep looking for more superfoods, it's because diet alone doesn't work. And if we simply just look at what Dr. Price studied when he went around the world and looked at indigenous cultures, not only were they eating a native diet, but every one of them was connected to their outdoor environment. They all were getting natural light through their eyes and on their skin. And none of them were living a completely indoor lifestyle. And so if we think about just eating the right food, one of the things we have to understand about the information contained in food is if you look at those indigenous diets, somebody living in a northern climate would not have access to carbohydrates all year around. And so when you begin eating carbohydrates, but you're exposed to outdoor lighting situations or indoor lighting situations that tell your body it's winter, your body is made to burn fat potentially during winter, not carbohydrates, because they would not have been available. And so just eating the right foods all the time, but eating too many carbohydrates potentially in the winter, tell your body that it's still summertime, while the light information is telling your body that it's wintertime. There's a mismatch in that information, and it causes chaos in the body. So food alone is important, but combining that with the right light environment is key. If you think also about melanopsin and blue light, when blue light hits the melanopsin receptor, it destroys DHA. So DHA is then destroyed. There are mechanisms that recycle it, but if we're never outdoors in the right light environment, those recycling mechanisms start to lose the DHA as it gets destroyed over and over and over by the blue light environment that we're in. So eating the right amount of DHA and protecting yourself from too much blue light then increases your overall health. So we know, high omega-3 and more DHA in the body is very beneficial. And why are people deficient? It's not just that they're not eating enough. It's that the light that they're exposed to is destroying some of that DHA that they eat.
Oh, so it's almost like the light is the secret sauce to help us to get the most out of the very food we're eating. Now, Thaddeus, let's pivot for a moment and talk about temperature. How can we be more primal or ancestral in our approach to the temperature that we're in?
Yeah, and this is more critical than I ever knew. And this is, much newer for me as well, that it's such a big deal. And I had no idea. I was focused on food and then focused on light. And it's all of a sudden dawned on me as I was doing this research, I came across so many studies on temperature and its effect on human physiology. And if we think about humans were designed to use cold. We were never designed or evolved, depending on your belief system, to live in an indoor environment at 70 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. And so we get into our SUVs and turn on our heated seats, and we go to our heated garages, to our heated offices, to the heated gym. And we really are living at 70 degrees for our entire lives. In the summer, we condition the air to be cooler than the outdoor temperature to keep us, again, at 70 degrees. And we know there are pathways in the brain that make use of cold. And there are systems that get turned on in the body. So our DNA has basically epigenetics. So our environment dictates what genes are expressed in our DNA. And if we're never cold, we're never expressing these genes that are coded in our body for cold. And in fact, those genes help us stay alive longer and stay much healthier. And so both getting cold and getting hot, like a sauna, have massive benefits to athletic performance, longevity, inflammation, muscle acquisition, and fat loss. And these things are still being studied today. There's so much cryotherapy out there, and there's people doing these things called cold thermogenesis protocols, which we can talk a little bit about. And then there's sauna protocols. And we've seen data from Finland where people that use sauna the most often have higher and higher levels of longevity. They live longer the more they use saunas and get hot. So this thing of getting our body uncomfortably hot and uncomfortably cold has very big benefits, and it's actually a lot easier to do and less uncomfortable than you think if you do it in the right way.
Oh, this is fascinating. And it reminds me of that viral video of children in some Scandinavian country who get in a sauna and then run outside and play in the snow in their underwear. And isn't it also a Waldorf school philosophy to get outside no matter the weather? This is part of the wise traditions, isn't it?
It is. And so there are very easy ways to do this that can be accessible to most people, but essentially we're not experiencing temperature fluctuations, and we really need to be fully human and fully healthy. And it is super appropriate to just get outside as often as possible. And what your body will do in a cold environment is it will adapt. So there's such thing as cold adaptation, and it can take faster or shorter depending on the technique that you're using. And once you're cold adapted, you're very resilient to cold. But the interesting thing is you're more resilient to heat as well. So you can stand longer times in hotter temperatures with less stress. And your body will actually have less stress overall from any situation, the more cold adapted that you are. And it really is just a matter of, hey, let's turn down the temperature a couple degrees in your house, turn down the temperature even more at night, perhaps. Maybe roll down your windows once in a while when you're driving in the fall and the winter in your car, and go outside with fewer clothes. Bring a hat with you, bring gloves with you, and cover up when you really need to, but try to go longer and longer outdoors without as many layers, and your body really will cold adapt. There are some, again, special techniques that you can use to do this much faster and a little more intense, and there's really rigorous pathways to do that safely, but your body is made to cold adapt, and if we never experience that, I don't feel we can have ultimate longevity and health without that aspect of being human.
Wow, this is really drawing me in. And I've actually been working on cold adaptation because I'm making plans to join you in February on your retreat, Thaddeus. So I've been going outside with a light jacket instead of a heavier jacket, and to my surprise, it hasn't been as hard as I thought. So it's kind of cool to see that resiliency in me and realize, wow, I can manage the cold better than I anticipated. But going back to your point, you're not just, bringing up these facts out of thin air. You have really looked at studies and are convinced that temperature fluctuation is good for our health and longevity.
Yeah, there's quite a number of studies out there on sauna and on cold use, especially NASA astronauts and getting cold. And then they looked at the Sherpas and how they have such high performance and are so cold adapted. So there's a number of studies that I look at. Then I experiment on myself, and then I look at other people that have done experimentation and seen the results. So it's not just that I see the data and then believe the data. I try these out on myself to really see what's going on personally, and whether it works, and be able to provide others with my personal experience and what I felt and how it worked for me.
And I'm thinking about athletes right now because I know football players or other athletes after a competition will take an ice bath. So it seems to me that some of this thinking around cold being beneficial for our bodies is out in the conventional world as well.
It is. And most people have looked at the inflammation reduction of taking an ice bath. So after sports performance, getting in the ice bath will reduce inflammation massively. You don't want to do it after weightlifting because that will not allow your body to adapt to the weight you just lifted. It'll drop your inflammation too quickly for your body to build additional muscle. But after an athletic event where you do need to recover quickly and get back into the gym training, it's a great way to reduce inflammation and have higher performance. What most medical doctors and athletic trainers are not looking at, except a couple. I know the head trainer of the Wizards was just at the retreat that we held in the summer this past year. So he's doing every biohacking thing possible for the Washington Wizards. He is just amazing at what he's studying. But you can improve athletic performance. So not just reduce inflammation, but actually make your performance better by using cold appropriately. And I think that is something that's not well known or well studied yet, but the research is out there and the anecdotal evidence from people that are using it, including Lance Armstrong, is very compelling at this point.
Well, we'll throw a link in our show notes to articles from your blog about heat and cold therapy, and even maybe to some of these studies that you've made reference to, because we really want to wrap our minds around these concepts.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely link to the resources and the studies, and any blog articles we've got, we'll link to all those as well.
Awesome. So now, Thaddeus, the final question. If the listener could do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
I'm going to go with my answer that I have found the most benefit from in my life, and from all the medical research that's out there, it will benefit every human on the planet, and that is get outside within 45 minutes of sunrise in the morning and stand barefoot if possible, and just do 5 minutes minimum. If you can just get outside at sunrise for 5 minutes, believe me, do that for 3 weeks and it will change your health.
Wow, that is an amazing challenge you have just laid down. Hey, and if you guys pick it up, just let us know on Instagram or on Twitter at Weston A. Price, and that way we can all be a part of this biohacking and Wise Traditions community together. Does that sound good, Thaddeus?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Hilda. This was great.
My guest today was Thaddeus Owen, the Primal Hacker. Visit Thaddeus's website, primalhacker.com. And for the show notes for today's episode, including links to blog posts about cold thermogenesis and studies Thaddeus mentioned, just go to westonaprice.org, head over to the podcast page, and look for the show notes for episode 161. Oh, and there you'll see our listener survey. Please take just a moment to fill it out. Thanks in advance. And remember to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a thing. You can also rate and review the show on iTunes. We read each and every review. It's a big encouragement and lets us know that our work is not in vain. Next week, my guest is Sally Fallon-Morell. Yep, the head of the Weston A. Price Foundation. She gives us the big picture on the Wise Traditions diet. It's basically a simple list of nutritional guidelines that take the stress out of healthy eating. These principles are basically wise traditions that have helped thousands of people around the world safeguard or improve their health. Sally goes over the 11 principles that make up the diet, and she helps us understand how to incorporate the most critical foods into our diets in the day-to-day. I love the insights, the experience, and the common sense she brings to the table. So do give a listen. Finally, a quick thank you to our podcast production team. Assistants include Cassie Reef, Diva Rizvi, Melanie Ahern, and Ari O'Hara. Cheryl Heftelin helps with social media. Mary Hine, Olga de Villiers, and Joy de los Santos boost sponsorship and help with special projects. Our listening team includes Heather Carpentier and Victor Cosetto, and Amy Matias helps with transcriptions. The music is from Michelle Bloom's CD, Big Backyard, specifically the track called Sunny Side Up. I think it's charming. Find her music at allthingsbloom.com. So that's it. Let's keep in touch, everybody. I'm on Instagram at Holistic Hilda. Follow me for health tips, podcast stuff and behind the scenes on the show, and me. Thanks, and see you soon. Oh, and if you ever want to launch a podcast, hit me up. I'm a podcast consultant with a specialty on shows having to do with health and wellness. And get my book, Podcasting Made Simple, on Amazon, or reach out to me through my website, holistichilda.com, for a free 15-minute consult. I'd love to brainstorm ideas to help you get your show out to the world. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon.
Thanks for listening today. We have all kinds of resources to support you on your health journey. On the Weston A. Price Foundation website, you'll find podcasts, blogs, articles, and brochures related to just about any health topic you can imagine. You can also find a local chapter to help you discover sources of real, organic food in your area. And you can become a member to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism. Visit westonaprice.org for all this and more. And remember that the Wise Traditions podcast is available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.